Jan to December 2023, the government bought about 17 tons of gold. This year we've seen an average of 17 to 20 tons every quarter bought. Gold tends to be the safe haven. Gold tends to be a very strong asset. Gold tends to be a reflection of a strength of a nation, and hence
Sachin Jain is the regional CEO for India at the World Gold Council. With over 2 decades of experience, he brings deep insights into gold's evolving role. Today, he joins us to discuss why central banks are buying more gold and its impact on global economics.
The United States has more than 8,000 tons of gold reserves. This is more than 10 times India's own reserves. So, what do you think are the lessons that India can draw?
India today is at a very different status. Politically, financially, today we are the fifth largest economy, or late 27, we will be the economy. And can any country corner us? I don't think it's an easy bet now.
Could you tell us how gold serves as policy tool to control inflation? We're seeing a trend, Sachin, in central banks, among central banks in the world, and that is that they've been buying gold. In fact, as per the World Gold Council's 2024 Central Bank Gold Reserves Report, China, Turkey and India have collectively purchased 1,000 tons of gold in 2022 and 2023. So what I want to understand from you is that what are the strategic reasons behind these central banks purchasing these amounts of gold?
Well, thanks for getting me on the platform. And I think, when you look at consumption of gold, it's under 4 or 5 pillars. And one of the very important pillars is central bank purchase. And hence, it's not a 2022 or 2023 phenomena. It's been a phenomena forever, since central banks have happened. And the reason is that the more geopolitical situations are a little uncertain, the more you're not want to be short on dependence on each other and you want to stand on your own feet kind of thing. That's when countries act, and countries, it's a semblance of what's happening in the world, and it's a semblance of where a country's strength is, and hence, you might have heard about conversations in the last 3 to 4 years around de-dollarization, around various elements of actions by certain governments in the world which restrict other governments of the world to do certain things, and hence gold tends to be the safe haven. Gold tends to be liquid. Golds tend to be a very strong asset, and hence over millennia, not just the last few years, gold tends to be a reflection of a strength of a nation, and hence governments over a period of time have been buying. Now look at 2024, where you mentioned 2022 to 2024. 2022 was a pure reflection around the various wars happening in the world, and the fact that in 2024 this whole geopolitical conversation, and I'm not even saying tension, just the conversation was moving to a direction where countries had to have more comfort in their own strength, and hence we saw that as a reflection. We as World Gold Council work a lot very closely with the central banks, and we are doing a lot of efforts around artisanal mining, where produce from their countries reach the official channels and doesn't get into sort of unscrupulous hands which funds wars, for example. So that work is happening. But in that conversation, we also realize, and we study where they're headed to. In June, we ran a very important survey, and you might want to see it online at World Gold Council site. And over 29 to 30% central banks globally emphasize that their continuity around confidence on investing in gold is here for long term, right? And that's not to do with whether the war subsides. There was a part of the other banks that were buying because of what is happening. So hence, I think gold is a reflection around your strength as a country, and I think it's going to continue as an important pillar of consumption of gold that we'll see. 2024 first half, particularly quarter one, we saw the amplification of the gold price rise that was led by one particular central bank, that was China's People Bank, and they just buy. And the other thing was that, other thing for your audience to understand is that when a central bank or a strategic national or a government buys, they're always price agnostic. They wouldn't buy that the price is low, so let's buy. They would buy because strategically, as a country, you believe in an asset class and a commodity, that needs to amplify, and hence you'll buy. But when this buying happens, then they would buy at whatever price. And what we witnessed in the first half of 2024 was a country wanting to strategically buy gold at whatever price. And hence, a lot of amplification of price happened because of central banks buying.
So I think the act of purchase is not exactly a new trend, but the quantum of purchase is something that you're seeing has been increasing. Do you think that would be a correct
Well,
statement?
actually, you see, earlier it was mostly the developed countries that were increasing their reserves, and particularly American market, American government, the Germany government. These were very strong footholds. What we've seen over the last few years is that developing countries and developing markets have been buying, which was never the case before. So India, for example, has a very important contender. China has been increasing its reserve over the last decade. So these are new, I would say, kids on the block, you would say, but new nations which will become important. And we foresee that a large part of developing countries will have the reflection of their strength via gold. So it's already begun with India, Turkey, Poland, and these markets. But I foresee also that as we go forward, a lot of developing nations will drive this change.
So where does India stand in this? I mean, you mentioned China, of course, purchasing gold in a big way. India too is in that list very much, along with Russia, Poland, etc. So where does India stand, and how do these changing gold reserves essentially change the power dynamic as well? Because like you mentioned, it indicates strength in an economy, right? So as your gold reserves increase or improve, there is a certain change in the power dynamic. So where does India stand in that?
Well, actually, if you look at India's interest in gold, that has been very strong. Over a period of time, we moved from a country which was deficit of foreign currency to a country which has $800 billion worth of reserves, right? So we're in a fairly strong position, even if you look at global standards. Now, at that point, there was 1990, if you go to the 90s, there was a crisis moment where we had to put all our reserves of foreign currency and buy gold, and all of those things that happened. We had given our gold to get foreign reserves. Now, India today is at a very different status, politically, financially, what's happening, and the potential. So, the dynamics of power of India is completely different. If you reflect back over the last decade in our country as well, and I'm not talking political, but we've had a very sort of a stable hand behind the steering wheel, and the progress India has made is not something that can get unnoticed. The world, if is planning for the next decade, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, India is a part of that. Today we are the fifth largest economy, and perhaps it's 2027 early or December. I mean, the only debate is early 27 or late 27, we will be the third largest economy. Now, with that, the financial power, the strength, the political power, the awareness of India is super strong. And it's a collective of a lot of things. It is a collective of our might, what we do as a GDP, a might of what we do politically, but also what we hold. And hence, gold, as I mentioned to you, is an important driver of the strength of a nation. And over the years, that's happened. 2023, the entire buying in the year Jan to December 2023, the government bought about 17 tons of gold. This year we've seen almost an average of 17 to 20 tons every quarter bought, which is significant. Now, does that reflect only one aspect of India? No, it reflects, I think, the strength of India. It reflects that we are quite comfortable on foreign reserves, as in foreign currency, and a magnus of things. And the fact that can any country corner us, I don't think it's an easy bet now. And that's purely, as I see, when I look at conversations which our respectable prime ministers have laid out, a destination of Viksit Bharat 2047, where our current economic size, which is about 4 trillion, is going to perhaps be around 30 trillion. And if you do the maths and look at the maths, if we grow by 9%, we're going to get there. If we grow dismally by 6%, even then we'll be at $23 trillion, which is massive. So I think the bets that the government and the Reserve Bank of India are making are big bets on a long-term perspective, which is what is needed in the current status of things.
Now, usually we've seen, like you mentioned, developed economies are the ones who buy big chunks of gold every year, every quarter. The United States, for example, has more than, I think, 8,000 tons of gold reserves. This according to some WGC data as on 2024. This is more than 10 times India's own reserves. So as we are in the process of fostering and bolstering our gold reserves. What do you think are the lessons that India can draw, from this in terms of leveraging gold also as a strategic asset?
Well, I think you see, US's reserves is not a recent phenomenon. US reserve has been around for I would say forever. I mean, they've been there, and the fact that in the 70s, US dollar became the currency of the world and stuff. So I think there were considerations around that. But again, if you look at fast forwarded to the year 2025 and beyond, there will be a certain percentage of gold that one needs to hold. I don't think it should be 8,000 tons. It should be more for sure. But I think the government and the financial planning of our country's leadership would be thinking of the right and optimal reserve of gold, keeping 2025 to 2047 in mind, which will be different, which doesn't need to be that high, but I guess it's going to be more for sure. It brings in that strength. I mean, one of the products that we've seen a lot of success in the Indian market, which was introduced by the Reserve Bank of India, was this sovereign gold bond that was offered to an Indian investor. Now, what it did was that it sort of, for somebody who wanted to invest, he could invest in gold, but it was not physically backed by gold, right? So I would invest in gold, government backs it, and when I encash it after 8 years of lock-in, I would get the current price of gold back. Now, the fact that it was not physically backed by gold perhaps has led to a large outflow of cash for the government, and hence maybe it's a reflection around the confidence on physically building gold, even for products for the consumer of India or a citizen of India. So it's going to be a combination of those things. I don't think I can put a number on what's the right number that India should have, but I certainly see a trend in which the government and the Reserve Bank of India is continuing to buy gold.
There's another alternative asset that Mr. Trump himself is promoting, and that's Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. He's in fact even spoken about it becoming a strategic reserve that countries may consider collecting. Do you think Bitcoin, gold, do you think that debate is something that will...
Well, from our point of view, I'd like to focus on what the strengths of gold are than sort of saying what are the weaknesses of some other asset class. And it's for a consumer or a government or institution to take that hedge. Now, gold comes in very strongly on a few things. It is liquid at all times. It's seen a great performance of an asset class growth. Just 2024 was 32% up. It's fungible, it's accessible, it's liquid, it works every part of the geography. Now, these are the strengths, and hence it's actually onto the investor whether if somebody, and there is a risk appetite and people want to invest in very high risk areas, and that's the call. So hence, I think will crypto develop or not? We'll have to hold and say. Is Indian government going to allow crypto? I think certainly will over a period of time in some way because of the reality of life. And I think as gold, there's for us to see what crypto has done, which has done perhaps there's some learnings, and I would say the digitization part of the world which we can bring into gold is something for us to learn, and bring a lot of work and initiatives where I can promise you that over a certain period of time, when somebody looks at gold as an asset class, you'll feel equally confident, equally comfortable on the fungibility, transparency, and the coolness around investing in gold.
Yeah, there's that coolness factor that comes in, especially when a lot of individual investors want to choose between gold and Bitcoin and equities and so on and so forth. But just from a country level as well, do you see, Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency and gold coexisting as a strategic asset class that countries sort of park in?
Well, again, depends on what country and what the level of appetite on risk is. If you're, I think in a country like ours, I firmly believe that physicality of gold will be perhaps of a much higher level of consideration than the high risk asset classes. I mean, when you look at how the insurance companies can invest or the funds can invest, it's a very conservative way by which government approaches or allows financial institutions to go behind it. So I think it depends on which country you are.
Now we're living in an era of inflation. It's something that we've been witnessing since COVID has been put in the past. The last 3 years, it's just been hyperinflation in various pockets. Could you tell us how gold serves as like this policy tool to control inflation?
Well, actually, gold has again a very strategic role to play there because it brings a bit of evenality around these conversations with bank and the systems and so on and so forth. But one is a part of inflation of the index that's going up and the cost of living that's changing. But also when you see gold itself has gone up dramatically over a period of time. And hence, I think when you look at your portfolio, then we always believe that a certain percentage of your portfolio, if it has gold, and that could be strategic, that could be individual, that could be government, then it gives a lot of comfort to what all you hold, which becomes, in a way, anti-inflationary, you could say, but your whole portfolio can be a much more healthy portfolio. I mean, last few months, the conversations have changed so much. So if you look at last 15 months, where the conversation was, okay, gold versus stock markets, to last 3 months, where it's very different conversation, because gold is still going up, stock markets are going through its own whirlwind, and the fact is that's the world we live in. There will be certain things that are stable, there will be certain things that won't be stable, and hence gold brings in that, I would say, that's firmness or that ease of stability in any investment class that anybody does.
How does gold influence other macroeconomic factors, like, for example, the strength of the currency, fiscal health in general of a country?
Actually, it's very interesting because we had a lot of parallels till the year 2023 ended, where we said that if the stock market goes up, gold will go down. If gold goes up, the stock market will go down. There were a lot of these models that existed, which did not work last year. And in the current world, there aren't very strict formulas to say if A is happening, B should happen. So I think that's the reality, that's the world we live in. But the impact, as I said, if a country holds gold, there's more firmness to what a country is. It's not about then, you're just printing your own currency or where you stand. But these are more, I would say, solid pillars when any central bank holds something. So I think it brings that permanence in the conversations, and then takes away from other elements of what you could perhaps do within your country. Yeah. But I can tell you 2024 was a year where none of these historical models worked, and all predictions just went for a topsy-turvy. There were times where we said that why is the gold price going up? And because if you look at in Indian market, a large part of consumption happens around jewelry. Yeah. Now, jewelry is something that as an individual or family would buy, okay? But you'd buy what is in your budget, right? And the price is going up, you're only buying less. But we just saw it just being, all the historical models, all that we thought it's a science, just did not work.
So that brings me to the next question. After analyzing everything and the way gold prices really, through all of the economic models and the relationships that we had studied back in our economic class out for a toss, why did gold go up in 2024?
Well, as I said, there are a few factors to that. Let me just explain to you a few. So we already covered these central banks, which is an important consideration of, consumption, but also the prices that get impacted. The second area is jewelry. Now, in jewelry, we saw in India in particular, the first half of 2024 was a very tough time because the prices are going up, and the pockets of a consumer is only that much. What changed was on the 22nd of July last year, when our respectable finance minister, in one sentence, just changed the way gold operates in our country. She reduced the custom duty from 15% to 6%, and in one single sentence, she completely erased the grey market and smuggling, which was a huge way by which gold used to come into the country. And hence, the Indian consumer started getting gold at the same level of a global consumer. The Indian organized retailer or a player was not under any pressure because there was grey market. The prices became, one price for the country in a certain way. And that was a big boost where actually in the months of August, September, where we don't sell so much of jewelry, the prices went down because of custom duty away, and the consumers bought all the wedding jewelry got preponed. So jewelry we did all right. I mean, in the sense of 2024, we didn't grow so much, but we didn't degrow because of the change of custom duty. The third pillar that we see is technology, and that's a very interesting one. So a lot of the fast AI chips that are developing use a lot of gold, and in the world of future, where artificial intelligence will be a part of our everyday conversation, and it's going to go down to it's an area where it'll be highly democratized and everybody will be using AI. We foresee that a lot of consumption of gold will be coming from there, right? Which will increase. And the fourth strongest pillar that we witnessed in 24 was the investment class in gold. And there are two parts of it. One is the bars and coins, and the numbers are astonishing. So we grew about 40 to 45% on volume, where investment bar and coin go up. But if you look at value, that was 80% plus that we saw, that consumers are interested to own and buy in gold. And the second part of that was ETFs and the digital gold that is going up. Now, again, with India becoming younger and younger people getting a little more financial savvy, we really foresee that gold will play an important role. And easy products like EDFs and just the fact that you can digitize gold will play an important role.
Okay, you spoke about AI. We've always thought of silver being the precious metal, which has that industrial usage factor, which is something that drives the prices of silver as well. But now you're saying that even the AI smart chips or the faster chips do have a component of gold. How do you see, or rather at this point, I'm sure the contribution is small or the demand from that industry is smaller, but how do you see this grow?
Well, actually, the fact is that, again, when you look at future forward world, there's so much of innovation happening, and around chips will be the world. I mean, I think there's so much going on that side of it. Gold's role has been significant in working with NASA in terms of space technologies. There's a lot of significance of gold, as I mentioned to you, on the AI side. And AI is just a beginning. We're just at the very threshold of beginning of a whole new world of AI. And right now, all the smart chips that are getting done, which are AI-led because they need more speed and accuracy, they'll be using gold. And just 2024, I can share some data where every quarter we've seen about as an average of 20% increase quarter on quarter on the demand of gold in the industrial side. And we foresee that that's going to happen more, it becomes a significant chunk. As you rightly said, today it's a smaller chunk of the whole pie, but we believe as we go forward in consumption of AI generally, because AI is coming here for all of us. Yeah. Today it's still at a certain set of the society and it's going to get more and more democratized. We believe that the demand will go up on this.
I want to go back to the point you mentioned on the decrease in import duty. I think the UAE has been a very popular spot for Indian consumers to go and shop. Do you think this decrease in duty has led to more people coming back to India, perhaps in shopping their jewellery and gold items from India?
I think the duty reduction is such a strong, significant, strategic, positive step. And I'm so glad that you mentioned UAE. And the fact is that, one, I think it's cut down the whole grey market, first and foremost. So, there was a whole amount of smuggled gold that used to come in the country. And we as World Gold Council used to report an actual approximate number of that. Now, the fact that I foresee that end of this year, or perhaps end of 2026, you see a real number of a GDP contribution, what gold does. How many people are really employed? What's the significance of gold in the economic outlay of a country? And all those things will have a real positive reflection of what gold is to a country called India. And hence all of that have to see one cycle. And today, a lot of consumption that was happening from UAE to India wasn't because there was a great creativity there. It wasn't because the product was just fantastic. There was nothing like that. It's just because there was price arbitrage. Yeah. And there will be no reason why an Indian consumer shouldn't buy in our country. And they will buy properly. I think it'll get in the system. They will pay a GST. So I think there are a lot of positives that will come out of an Indian consumer consuming a product, not just because of the price difference, but because they want to consume at their favorite jeweler next to their home, who they always love to. So I think it's a very positive step.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to talk about gold mining in the country. We do have a superb reserve of golds. We've been blessed, I think, with natural resources, and gold is one of them. However, we are importing a large amount of gold. I mean, there's a large dependency on imported gold. What sort of improvements or potential improvements do you think can be made over there?
I think it's a great area I can reflect on a little deep. So, as a part of our strategic projects of World Gold Council, we have charted out on a project called Swarnim Udan 2047. Now, it's in conjunction with the India's destination of Viksit Bharat 2047. And what we're doing over here is that we're trying to create a whole roadmap of what gold will be in 2047 and what are the things that the industry and the government need to do in 2040, 2035, 2030 and now, right, to get to that point. And one of the very important areas in the pillar is the mining of gold. And the fact is, I'll give you an example of China. China was, like us, 30 years ago, one of the biggest importers of gold. Today, China is the largest producer of gold in the world, right, from mining point of view. And in India, for the 800 plus tons that we get and consume, we mine about 2-3 tons. So it's almost insignificant. But to your point, as you rightly mentioned, there's a great potential. And, there was, I mean, I've been reading a lot of reports around the Kolar mine, for example, which became unprofitable at a certain point to mine. Now, unprofitable when it was $1,000 per ounce. At $3,000 or $2,800 per ounce, a different conversation. And we've been talking to the government now to open up this conversation. The government has been very responsive around it. And in terms of now, the intent is how we're trying to create a paper as to how India needs to open up mining. And it might require a change of bit of laws, but also look at technology, which is 2025 and 2026. Look at anticipating how much reserve is there, not from the reserve logbook of 1980, but perhaps a fresh survey needs to be done for now. But you'd see that a lot of outcomes of that coming in the coming years. And the moment India becomes a gold mining hub, a lot of things will change. Today we are a price taker. We're not a price maker because we don't mine gold. We just buy it from somewhere, it comes here. And with the increased consumption, India today is the second largest consumer of gold after China. And I think the lot of importance of Indian conversation in the gold market will happen. So mining will play an important role. I think it will require a bit of changes of law, how private enterprise can participate in it. Today it's a little huddle up and it's a little gray there, because the thing is that if you start mining, the moment the produce comes out, it has to be auctioned. So it just needs to be friendly for Indian enterprise and global enterprises to come into it.
Can you talk about this recent announcement regarding establishment of a self-regulatory organization for the gold industry and its significance?
Well, I think, as we look into the long term, as World Gold Council, we committed to the long-term good of gold and long-term good of India and other countries that we operate on. Now, when we studied the market, and we do a lot of surveys where it's not sitting in boardrooms and talking about what we strategically think about what's happening in the world, but it's really going down to the brass tacks and talking to the consumer on the street, talking to the government around there. Now, all our surveys came out with something significant. It came out that about 2/3 of the consumer still don't trust gold. While we still buy from our local jeweler or whatever, but this trust is still a long way to go. And there are reasons for that. There are historical reasons for that, where you've been fleeced or you've been, you've not got purity and so on and so forth. World's a better place. But as an industry, we're really fragmented. Now, to give you a sense, in the Indian jewellery industry, we perhaps have a body which is a representation of an association for every street. So in Bombay itself, there'll be a Bandra association, there'll be a car. I mean, it's like fragmented to that level. And the intent is to bring the industry together. So we are introducing the first self-regulatory organization in the entire gold value chain. It's called IAGES, so India Association for Gold Excellence and Standards. So it's like gold is for ages, it's IAGES. And the intent is to bring the industry together and have one voice. The intent is that we will give a code of conduct on the 6 value chains of gold. So the 6 value chains of gold are refining. We don't have mining right now, as we talked about already. So this refining, it's around trading of gold, it's bullion trading, it's retailing, it's online play, and all manufacturing. So all of these people, all of these verticals have a code of conduct. You have to undersign for that code of conduct. You will have to have an audit done for that code of conduct and earn the IAGES logo, right? And once you do that, then you're basically telling the consumer that you're operating at certain levels of standards, which include fair working practices, working conditions, right pay, right invoice, exchanged ways. So the intent is to give more and more confidence to the consumer at large. So there is a government which regulates and there's an industry. The self-regulation operates somewhere in between, where the industry is self-regulating its own thing. But the unique thing around the IAGES is that it's an association which is not just about, join the club, let's pat our backs, right? Let's pat each other back and life is good. But the intent is that we will be in Q2 of 2025 going to the consumer and spending a lot of energies and investments that consumer knows what an IAGES representation is. So if you're walking on, let's say, a Chandni Chowk street or any other market, somebody who you see has an IAGES logo, you'll know that this entity stands for certain best practices. And hence, it'll reduce the trust deficit and become the whole industry perhaps will become one place. And there have been a lot of examples. And while creating the IHS, we studied a lot of SROs. So one of the important SROs in India is the AMFI, which got the whole mutual fund industry together. There's NASSCOM, which got the, and so there are a lot of examples like that in India and internationally. But iAges is the first gold SRO globally. And I think, getting back to our earlier conversation, this is the time when India will export ideas to the world. And I believe that a successful SRO done in India will be the example led or taken anywhere in the world.
Just a question again on the macroeconomic part of it. India is importing a lot of gold. I think 5% of India's imports are essentially gold. Now this at a time when we are following a path of fiscal prudence or fiscal consolidation. The numbers for that are very encouraging. So in what way or what are the strategies you would recommend or World Gold Council would recommend India to balance on one side the fiscal numbers while at the same time, of course, the demand for gold, which stems from cultural reasons?
Well, I think it's, again, all the things that are reflected is not just cultural reason. It's about, you becoming stronger as a individual, as a family, as a business, as an institution, as a country. So gold does more things than just importing. And so, if you were to import let me not take a brand name, but if you import a phone, right? And today the way we treat it is that you import $1 billion worth of phones and $1 billion worth of gold and it's equal. And the fact is it's not. Gold is almost a capital that stays and holds value and stays on. After 1 year, the value of gold of 1 billion perhaps will be 1.2 billion, but the value of the phone imported will be 0. So it's a very important thing to know. And we are making representations to the government and the IMF now that the classification of gold needs to be relooked at. And I think the world in India, the consumption pattern in India, getting more white economy led, more money in white, is going to show how gold is kept in a transparent and a tangible manner. Earlier it was all, the black money rotation was so large and it all stemmed from, smuggled gold. So you see, it's all connected. Now, the fact that the government has taken a strong step of reducing the custom duty, right, where the consumption of gold, if it goes at these levels at heightened prices, it's a great thing because you will hold something substantial in a family. It's not something that you bought a designer bag which is not going to last long or a designer gown. So please understand that the tangibility and the timelessness of gold will stay on from a value point of view, from a peace of mind point of view, from a liquidity point of view, and there are so many other elements that come alongside with gold. So I wouldn't worry that it's a wrong thing to buy more gold. I think the treatment has to be different. It has to be more reflected in white, in books, in balance sheets, and that's the way. The 2024 year and getting into 2025, the amount of family offices that are looking at buying gold is massive. The fact that today you have the gold exchange called IIBX in Gift City, which allows global people to invest in India on gold is massive. These are opportunities that are here to stay and grow. So transparency will determine the strength of gold here.
There's tech everywhere in our lives and, with gold too, there is an element of tech that's come in. Digital gold, of course, is one example and then ETFs, so on and so forth. How is the future of gold looking like, especially with tech integration? Well,
I think the world is going to be very different. It's going to be more transparent. People will be more confident. When I walk to Starbucks today, in various parts of the world, you scan a QR code and it tells you where the coffee beans have come from. And if you can do that for a $2 coffee, then I think all the other asset classes need to buckle up. And I'm very glad to share with you about a project called Gold 247. Gold 247 is a complete transformation of gold as an asset class. It's about usage of blockchain technology right from the source of our mines to exchange areas like LBMA and further down in the value chain, where I foresee a time where every time you look at gold, you'll get via technology 3 promises. First and foremost, you'll get a promise that whatever gold you hold is authentic. And there's no debate that it's a purity issue or whatever. It's authentic and it's sourced from responsible areas or responsible mining. So that's one guarantee you will get. Not vague, but an assurance there. Secondly, it will be 100% accessible, which means today gold, because of the markets it operates, because different geographies operate in different timings. So, if you compare it to an asset class, it lacks accessibility. And with this, the gold will be a 24/7 accessible product as a capital asset. And third, and the very important one, it will be fungible. So today, to move gold from A organization to B, A country to B, A geography to B is a little complicated, and we'll solve that. So the future world that's happening via tech, via blockchain, and most importantly, the willingness of the leadership of the gold industry, where they want to make a change. The mining companies, for example, are great examples of that change. What they're doing at this source and how it's getting transformed is brilliant, because everybody wants to make the world of gold from this opaque, hazy world to being a very transparent, structured, doing things for good. And I think Gold 247 is a great example of transforming the whole gold industry to a point where accessibility, fungibility, and confidence will be very high.
All right, Sachin, I think we've got to learn so many new things about gold as an asset class, not just for central banks and governments, but for individuals as well, investors and consumers. Thanks so much.
No, I'm very grateful for you guys to have me on the platform, and I'm hopeful that your listeners will get inspired on the future of gold. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. That's, of course, a conversation around gold. Yes, we've known it as that one asset class which is present in every household. But today we've got to learn so many different aspects and angles around it. Here are my key takeaways. Yes, central banks around the world, right from not just the United States, but India and China have been accumulating gold. And the reason behind that is that the world, as we know, is now fraught with more and more geopolitical uncertainties. Second, gold is the important strategic asset class to have, not just because of cultural importance, but also the fact that it is fungible, and with tech, it's becoming more transparent and structured. And more importantly, it's unignorable. With close to a 20 to 30% return in 2024, it's one of the best asset classes in terms of returns out there. That's, of course, our episode of Temperaments. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you've enjoyed this episode. We'll be back with more. And of course, don't forget to consult a qualified financial advisor before taking any investment decisions.